Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to discuss about a brief intro about Docker. Some of my seniors suggested instead of directly diving into assignments and all, just give a crisp background of Docker. So in this video we are going to understand why Docker, how Docker works, what is the Docker architecture, what are the main components of it in a very shorter way. Post that in next video. Without any ado, we are going to jump into assignments and real world practicals. So in this video, I will explain how Docker works, how different it is from virtualization. So this is the logo of Docker. Yeah, why Docker? We have so many other options. Why we need to go for Docker? There is a concept called namespaces in Linux. So what this namespace means, when you run a process, the process assumes it has separate CPU, separate memory, it has a separate infra. Those layering is there in Linux from starting itself. What this Docker people did is they have commercialized this concept and they have introduced more understandability to the code. They have deployed more CLIs, like they have introduced Docker client to ease the use of a namespace concept, which will assume each container having different infra and all. Even though they are all running in the same machine, they consider like they are running on a different machines. So that isolation will be there because of the namespace and CNAME concept, which is there from starting of the Linux. So how different is it is from virtualization are also using same concept. We are going to segregate the available resources into different I mean, we are cutting down into pieces and we are using it like, let's understand how different it is from virtualization. Virtualization, basically you will be having two types of hypervisors. Type 1 hypervisor will be residing on the um, type 1 hypervisor will be residing directly on the hardware, and it will segregate the hardware according to the instances that we are launching. Whereas type 2 hypervisor is something which is been hosted on the host OS, and it will run separate instances uh, using that underlying OS. So this diagram will show how the virtualization machine works. We'll have this is a type 2 hypervisor. We are having a host operating system. On top of it, we are going to install hypervisor. This hypervisor will segregate all the available CPUs, memories, and computing and all into different layers, and it will segregate depending upon the requirement of the instances. What the disadvantages? This sounds similar to container itself. Here also we are having isolation. Here also we are having different we are optimizing the resource utilization. How different it is from Docker? If you see here, if we are going to launch an instance, it will install with the OS in it. So OS it will install. On top of OS it will install all the dependent binaries and all. On top of it we have the application. So here, since we have already base OS is available in our system, but still we are going to install one more OS, which is going to consume more amount of computing resources. So the resource utilization is not optimal here. What Docker will offer us is, we have host OS, we'll use same host OS for the containers that we are launching. So it will use the same host OS. On top of it, we are going to install Docker engine. Docker engine is the heart of the Docker. It will segregate all the resources, and it will run Docker daemon process in the background, and it will maintain all the it will segregate all the resources which are required for the container to be up and running. So we are going to install only those binaries which are required to launch the container. and we are going to launch the container on top of it. So here no guest OS is required. It will save lot of resources. It is how it is. So this is the difference between virtualization and Docker. How Docker, like, what are the advantages over VMs means, it is cost efficient because we are not going to install the software, right? So the cost wise also we are going to save here. And scalability, we can easily launch an instance, easily launch an container, and we can use the same image to launch the multiple containers. So the scalability is also very high and it is very quick as well. Unstable environments, so we can maintain multiple replicas. So we can use Docker Swarm. Docker Swarm is one more concept which will maintain a cluster of containers, and whenever the container, one of the contain, we have number of worker nodes there. Whenever a container is down, it will bring up the next container. So the scalability will be also stable environments we have. And portability, if we want to migrate a virtual machine, it is a very complex process, whereas if you want to migrate a container, it is very simple. We need to push it to Docker Hub. We need to create a image from the existing container, and we can push it to Docker Hub. From there we can pull the image into our whatever the machine that we are trying to, and we can run the container with all the dependencies which is being used in the previous container. So the portability is also very easy in Docker. So how the Docker architecture one works? We have mainly three components in Docker. One is Docker client. Docker client is a is an mediator between user and Docker host. It acts like a mediator. It will give the CLIs to the user, so user can run the commands that it will send the REST API to Docker host. Docker host will process the REST API, and it will perform the necessary action. We have three examples here. We'll understand by examples. Docker host is something which will reside all the Docker containers, images, and it resides the Docker daemon process. It will be make suring that Docker daemon process is always up and running, and all this will take care Docker host. Docker registry is somewhere where we can store the images and we can pull the images. Let's understand this architecture deeply by these three examples. Docker build. Docker build is something we are building a container based on a Docker file. I will explain about Docker file in the upcoming sessions. Let's understand just it's an YAML file which is responsible to launch the container, to launch the image, and uh, in the image we will configure all the prerequisites which needs to be installed. That also we will configure in Docker file. Once the Docker file is ready, the YAML is ready, we use Docker build command to launch the image. Image is something which is a readable file, so this will help to launch the image. Once we run the Docker build command, it will ask daemon process whether the image is available locally or not. The daemon process will check um, all these blue strips related to, I mean, Docker build. This daemon process will check whether the image is locally available or not. If it is not available, then it will pull the image from a Docker repository. It will check what is the latest version. If we provide the version name, it will provide the version. If we haven't provided the version name, it will pull the latest image. So from Docker build, it will ask Docker daemon whether the image is locally available or not. If not, it will pull from Docker repository, and it will check whether any pre-request configurations has been configured in a Docker build Docker file or not. If so, it will install those pre-requests as well, and it will create an image. So there, that is how Docker build works. Docker pull. How Docker pull works is Docker pull will pull the image from Docker registry. We are going to pull the images into our local machine. It will a Docker pull will ask Docker daemon to pull the image from Docker repository. It will pull the images from Docker repository and it place it in our local machine. That is how Docker pull works. Docker run is responsible to launch the containers from the existing images. So we will we will run the Docker run, and it will ask Docker daemon to check whether the image is available. If the image is available, it will it will launch the containers which are ready to use. This is the basic architecture of Docker. We will discuss these particular commands in more details in the upcoming sessions when we are running the assignments. So, what are the main components of Docker? Are these are the five main components of Docker. I have explained like Docker engine. It is the heart of the Docker because it is responsible to run all the Docker daemon process and see whether the containers is up and running, and resource segregation. These all tasks will be taken care by Docker engine itself. So Docker image, that is the purpose of Docker engine. Docker image is something which is like a readable file. It will be like an, if you are aware of AWS, it will be like an Amazon machine image. Like that image, it have all the binaries, all the dependencies, and whatever the requirements to launch the container, all this will be in the readable format, but we can't do anything for the image. If we want to launch, if we launch the container from image, we can modify things there, and again we will convert those container and the softwares that we have installed and the code that we deployed, and again we will convert that into readable format using Docker commit command, which will be published into Docker Hub, and we can give to other developers for use as well. And that is how Docker image works. In simple words, it's a readable file, and it have all the dependencies to launch the container. So that is Docker image. And Docker Hub. Docker Hub is something. Docker Hub is a website, is a central repository where all the developers and all the candidates who are DevOps engineers, they will publish their specific images into Docker Hub for public use. It may be public use or private use. If we are working for a company, we will publish those in private, so that no other people will access those images. If we published as a public image, means other developers can also pull the image and they can use it. This is like a git git repository that we are using in Git, right? And same similar concept applies here as well. That is the Docker Hub. Docker file is, as I mentioning, like Docker file in the previous image, like while discussing about Docker build, we have discussed about Docker file, right? Docker file is a YAML file. um, uh, oh sorry, it's not a YAML file. A Docker file is a file where we used to configure from which image the container need to be, the which image we need to pull, and what is the dependencies that we need to install, and what is the working directory of the container when we launch the container from the Docker file. Those are all configurations we will configure in Docker file. And Docker registry, yeah, same. This Docker registry is nothing but Docker Hub only, where we can place all those images. If we want to publish the images, we will publish in Docker registry. We can create one Docker registry for our name. Once we log into the Docker Hub, we will be provided with the username. In that, we can create our own registry and we can publish our images there. This is how Docker registry works. These are the main components of Docker. We will discuss more about this Docker commands and all. In the next videos, I am going to discuss on how to launch an image and how to launch the container and all. These concepts we'll discuss in next video. Yeah, that's the topic for today. Thank you all. Please like and subscribe. Like I am also a learner. Let's learn together and let's grow together. Thank you. Thank you. Please do like and subscribe, guys. If in case of any improvements required, just comment down below. I'll try to implement those as well in the upcoming videos. Thank you.